The full name of Neftali Reyes, better known as the poet Pablo Neruda, was Ricardo Eliezer Neftali Reyes Basualto. He was born on July 12, 1904 in Parral, Chile. This is his birth certificate. In this photograph, we can see Pablo Neruda's parents, Don José del Carmen Reyes and Doña Rosa Neftali Basualto. His father worked as a railroad worker and engineer in Talcahuano, while his mother was a teacher and died of tuberculosis shortly after Neruda's birth. Globally known as Pablo Neruda, adopted his pseudonym Pablo Neruda when he was around 17 years old, and legally formalized his poetic name in 1947, although Neruda never confirmed the exact origin of his name. The most accepted conjecture is that he was inspired by the violinist Guillermina Maria Francisca Neruda, who was known as Vilma Norman Neruda, and that name appeared in the Sherlock Holmes novel, A Study in Scarlet. Here we can appreciate the name change certificate. In this image, we can see the marriage certificate of the poet's parents. Pablo Neruda was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1971 for the entirety of his poetic work, which was recognized by the Swedish Academy for a poetry that, with the action of an elemental force, bring to life the destiny and dreams of a continent. The prize was not granted for a specific work, but rather for the scope and impact of his poetic career as a whole. The child's foot still doesn't know that it is a foot, and it wants to be a butterfly or an apple. But then the glass and the stones and the streets and the stairways and the path of the hard earth begin teaching the foot that it cannot fly, that it cannot be around the fruit upon the branch. The child's foot, then, was defeated. It fell in battle. It was taken prisoner, condemned to live inside a shoe. Little by little, without a light, it came to know the world in its own way, without knowing the other foot, shut away, exploring life like a blind man. Poem, The Foot of a Child. Pablo Neruda's baptismal record is kept at the Church of Parral, where a marble reproduction is displayed at the entrance, along with a faithful copy of the original, which you are now viewing. Neruda was buried in the General Cemetery following his death, which occurred on September 23rd, in 1973. In 1992, he was moved to what had been his home in Isla Negra. In 1927, Pablo Neruda was appointed honorary consul in Rangoon, Burma, marking the beginning of his diplomatic career and his first journey abroad, which kept him away from Chile until 1931. During the period in Orient, amid a profound solitude, he wrote much of the poetry that would form the first part of his work, Residence on Earth. Brigida Reyes, the poet's aunt, lived her entire life in Parral, in the north of Arturo Prat Street, and passed away in solitude. When he was 2 years old, Pablo Neruda moved to Temuco with his family in 1906. His father, José del Carmen Reyes, was a railway worker, and his mother passed away shortly after his birth in 1904. His father later remarried Trinidad Candia Marverde, whom the poet affectionately called Mamadre. Neruda attended the Liceo de Hombres de Temuco, and it was in this city that he developed as a poet, meeting Gabriela Mistral. He was born with the 20th century and uttered his first words at the Belen Estates, owned by his paternal grandfather, Don José Ángel Reyes Hermosilla. Surrounded by the rugged solitude of the Central Valley, amidst vineyard and rice fields, the child began to discover the world, a world of green solitude and mud brick houses whitewashed with lime. A gentle, simple world that breathed to the rhythm of the nature and the changing seasons. The wine of fine stock from the best vine of the Maule region could not be absent from the poet's table, and indeed, it was never missing at his gathering with friends at the social club, where Matilda sang folk tunes inspired by Neruda's verses, or the municipal theater, where he often gave recitals and lectures. In 1967, he was declared an illustrious son by the municipality. 2 days of intensive celebrations were held, including a parade along the main street, triumphal arches, a waso procession, a poetry recital, the presentation of a gold medal, a luncheon at the rodeo arena, a rodeo itself, and a barbecue at the ranch of the mayor of the time and promoter of this initiative, Don Enrique Astorga. The poet traveled accompanied by an extensive entourage of friends, journalists, and writers, including a delegation from the Soviet Union, the Colombian writer Delia Carraza, and the Venezuelan poet Miguel Otero Silva, and it had also been announced that Mario Vargas Llosa of Peru would attend, though he ultimately did not arrive. Contradicting certain predictions, the entire town of Parral poured into the streets to greet and celebrate its most famous son. Pablo Neruda had received the National Prize of Literature in 1945 and was already a poet of universal recognition and admiration. Dagoberto Escarate, a filmmaker and columnist from Parral, met Neruda in Rome during one of his trips while studying film. Thank you for visiting our library.